Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're going to be talking about the one and only XCN. Now, if you watch the other videos, you probably are going to hear me say the same thing in the beginning, but just in case you haven't, I have to say just in case the viewers haven't. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we can see $335 million liquidated from the crypto markets in the past 60 minutes after Israel launches strikes on Iran. Now, that is the main thing, right? And as you can see, this was 5 hours ago. This was a couple hours ago. And yeah, Israel launches strikes on Iran. Now, here's the thing, right? Throughout Bitcoin's history, obviously, there's been certain types of wars, but when you count something like Israel and Iran, just objectively in terms of how powerful they are in the rankings of the world and how much more likely it is to cause World War III, this is actually very, very serious. And we have to talk about this, right? Because, we do mainly talk about XCN news for XCN videos, obviously, but this is very, very relevant. Now, obviously, yes, I do know war is bad. No one wins in war. People die. And that's like the main thing. But in terms of just the financial point that we talk about on this channel, right? This is going to be some of the worst things that can happen for the markets, right? Now, Israel and Iran going at each other is one thing. The fact that it could escalate to World War III is a whole another thing when we talk about finances, right? Because what does that mean for XCN? What does that mean for crypto? What does that mean for Bitcoin? Well, that just means dumps. That just means dumps. We can see Bitcoin, right? Struggling to hold, most likely will not hold. This price action does not look good, which means I would expect to go back to some of these lows of 100K. We're going to see 100K Bitcoin, right? If we're going to see 100K Bitcoin, that's going to be another 4% drop, which obviously means other altcoins are going to bleed, which obviously means something like XCN, ladies and gentlemen, will be bleeding, right? Will be bleeding. And of course, if we go to a World War III potentially, then you could say goodbye to your XCN potential pumps. You could say goodbye to altcoin season. You could say goodbye to the Bitcoin crypto world until obviously things get fixed. But even then, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to make a whole global reset, right? And that's just a topic for another video, not necessarily just the XCN one. But yeah, like, look, obviously with the news surrounding it, it's obviously really, really not ideal. In terms of pure technical analysis standpoint, we never had confirmation that we were going to retest, right? The last bullish type of momentum we had was really like the early to mid-April when we pumped for those 3 days, went absolutely nuclear, some might say. But yeah, that was the main thing, right? And we can see we were ranging. We were mainly ranging. Then we broke out of the range, right? We can see, boom, we take this trend line. We broke out of it. It's been a heavy dump since. And we can see we did have one pullback candle on the 4th of June, practically retested these bottoms over here, right? Retested these bottoms over here, rejected, and then we just continued to go lower. We can see we had one bullish candle on the 9th, but guess what? That was just a retest off of this to continue to sell off. Now, even if hypothetically, let's say things were going to start looking good for Bitcoin, which obviously could translate a little bit to XCN. Well, they're not going to now, right? Not with these war tensions. So what do we expect for this coin right now? We expect it to go lower and lower until there is going to be some type of confirmation, right? I did give some certain zones where I did say that, hey guys, look, I probably won't go lower than, that 10 to 12 cent mark. But with World War III being potential, it being a possibility, even if we don't get to it, the fact that there's going to be probably a lot of high tensions over the next couple of days probably means we will be dropping to lower levels. Now we can look at it from a technical analysis standpoint of how low we're truly going to go, right? How low we're going to go regarding of this news, or even if this news just lasted a little bit. Now, my next thing is we probably will be dropping to that 9 cent zone. Now, that doesn't mean automatically we're going to bounce back, right? We have to see how the world is at that point. We have to see how or what kind of reaction we have, right? But we can see we are fairly bearish right now. We don't have any indication. And this is a weekly order block down over here. It did sweep the last weekly relevant candle of This is January 2025. And obviously these candles over here of March, right? April swept this March candle, boom, and then started to go up instantly. And, usually when there's some type of sweep, we do go to some type of order block. Now, I will say technically on a higher time frame standpoint, we are creating lower and lower highs. We have this high over here. We have this lower high here. So we really need to see some type of life and bounce back and create a high higher than these highs over here. Because if we don't, then ladies and gentlemen, technically on a higher time frame, we're just consistently creating lower and lower highs, which means we could very well be going further and further down, especially if the possibility of World War III is going to continue to rise, right? So not ideal, not ideal. If we go on something like the monthly, right? The monthly doesn't look that bad. It really just depends how this 3-month candle, or sorry, how this month of June closes. And then on the 3-month candle, we can see the 3-month is actually very, very bad in terms of the rejections. We can see this 3-month candle from all the way back from January to March is a huge rejection. And this one from April is also a huge rejection. So really, really not ideal for XCN at all, right? We would need to see some very, very key, resistance and support right over here at these key levels. We would need to see some type of reversal signs. And of course, we need the sun, not the sun, but we need the world to be all sunshine and rainbows once again. Okay. So that is the next relevant zone I am looking for. Now, even just in terms of the indicators, which I've started to do for you guys, because I know some people just understand it more. When the orange line is below the green line, what does that indicate? That means we are bearish. So we can see the orange line is really, really far from the green line. So there are no indications of reversals anytime soon. Yes, even though technically the green line is below the orange line on the weekly time frame, what's going to really matter is how we hold around the 10 to 9 cent mark. If we just start slamming below it, then things are going to ultimately flip. But for the more accurate data that's more relevant for us to the short to medium-ish type of term, we are going to be looking at this, and we can see the orange line is below the green. Now, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, I am still super optimistic about this coin. I still think this coin is going to do very, very well, objectively speaking, when we talk about what this coin does provide. And yeah, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you do want a portfolio review or you want more advanced technical analysis on this coin, highly recommend joining the Discord community. Love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye. Portfolio reviews, economic and global updates and news, frequent up-to-date technical analysis, and a very supportive community. Sell and buy calls and trading education is provided. If that sounds good to you, now is the time to act. Once the markets start moving, there is no I shoulda, coulda, woulda. Now is the time. If you want to take things to another level, we have the blueprint that covers everything from A to Z in crypto that you need. No fluff, no bullshit, just the most important news, fundamentals, and technicals to have you succeed in these markets.